Hello, students, teachers, parents, history nerds. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nutshelled History, where we lay out the facts, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Today, we're going to continue our economics series by looking at free enterprise and other economic systems. Don't forget that there's a link for a fill-in-the-blank worksheet in the description. I just ask that you like and subscribe. I apologize for any mispronunciations ahead of time. I do my best. So, here's the deal. Every country is stuck in a never-ending episode of what should we do with our stuff? They're faced with three big questions. First, what stuff do we make? Second, how do we make the stuff? And third, who gets to use the stuff? Imagine the world as a giant reality show where every country has to figure out how to use their limited resources. Some countries are all about freedom and fairness, while others just want to make sure things run smoothly. Everyone wants growth, though, because who doesn't want more shiny new toys and a better life? Now, countries can also have their own bonus goals, like keeping the planet from becoming a landfill or making sure everyone has a job. But of course, life isn't that simple. Sometimes, protecting people from economic storms means slowing down the cash flow. To tackle these questions, different economic systems have popped up. The oldest one, the traditional economy, is like that friend who still uses a flip phone because it works just fine. It's all about sticking to the old ways, with zero room for the latest gadgets or trends. Now, I don't mean to disappoint you, but none of us are superhumans who can make everything we need, like a pizza-making, car-building, furniture-crafting wizard. So what do? We head to the market, where people swap the stuff they have for the stuff they want, kind of like a giant yard sale, but with more rules. Now, in a free market economy, the big questions of what do we make and who gets what are answered by buyers and sellers doing their thing, wheeling and dealing. Everyone's out for themselves. Buyers want the best deals, and sellers want the most cash. This self-interest drives the whole system. But wait, there's more. Competition jumps in like a reality TV show judge, making sure prices stay low and quality stays high, as companies battle it out for your hard-earned money. It's like a never-ending game show where everyone wins, sort of. In the free market, you've got two main stages: the factor market, where companies buy the tools, workers, and resources they need, and the product market, where you spend your paycheck on the latest gadgets or snacks. The free market is great for efficiency, freedom, and innovation, but when it comes to making sure everyone's safe and treated fairly, it sometimes drops the ball. But hey, nobody's perfect. Moving on. Imagine if your entire life was run like a super strict game of Simon Says, but instead of Simon, it's the government calling all the shots. In a centrally planned economy, the government is the big boss, deciding who works where, what gets made, and how much everything costs. You don't get much say. It's like someone else is always ordering for you at a restaurant. In this setup, the government owns everything: the land, the factories, even the idea of a paycheck. They decide what's on the menu, how much you get paid, and where you get to work. It's a command economy where the government's in charge and everyone else just follows orders. Now let's talk about socialism and communism, the dynamic duo of centrally controlled economies. Socialists are like the idealistic friends who think everyone should share everything equally, and they believe the only way to do that is if the public runs the show. Sometimes they even try to be democratic about it. Communists, on the other hand, are the more intense cousins who think the only way to achieve that utopia is through a dramatic revolution. They agree with the socialists on the goals, but think getting there requires flipping the whole table over. So no economic system is like that magical unicorn that can do everything perfectly. Even the beloved free market has its hiccups. Even the biggest fans of free markets admit that sometimes the government needs to step in, like when it comes to building highways or keeping the country safe. You know, the kind of things a bunch of competing businesses might struggle to handle on their own. The truth is, no country goes all in on just one approach. Instead, they all blend free markets with a dash of government control. It's like making a smoothie. You get a mix of ingredients, and the flavor depends on how much of each you throw in. Some countries, like North Korea, are heavy on the government ingredient, basically running the whole show. Meanwhile, China's been adding a bit more free market to its mix lately. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got places like the US, where free markets are the main flavor, but there's still a little government spice thrown in. Then there's Singapore and Hong Kong, which are like, who needs a lot of government? We're good with just a pinch. In the US, there's this long-standing tradition of free enterprise that's basically the ultimate Shark Tank experience. Everyone's encouraged to pitch their business ideas and see if they sink or swim in the marketplace. It's like an open audition where anyone can show up and compete for a spot. In this freewheeling economy, consumers are the real VIPs, calling the shots by voting with their wallets. If enough people buy something, producers get the hint and start cranking out more of it. And if consumers band together to form interest groups, they can even nudge the market or the government to cater to their whims. Entrepreneurs are like savvy detectives, picking up on these clues and swooping in to meet consumer demand, all driven by the promise of sweet, sweet profit. Of course, the government isn't just sitting on the sidelines. They've got a role too, like making sure everyone's property is protected, contracts are honored, and no one's pulling any shady business deals. The Constitution even lays down some ground rules about taxes and stops the government from messing with business contracts. Meanwhile, federal and state agencies are like the referees, keeping an eye on industries that could affect public well-being. How does free enterprise support economic growth, you ask? Imagine the American economy as a giant roller coaster, and the government economists are the ones trying to keep it from going off the rails. They do this by keeping an eye on the big picture, which is what macroeconomics is all about, studying how the whole economy is behaving, like a zookeeper watching over a very large, unpredictable animal. On the other hand, microeconomics is more like peeking through a magnifying glass at the financial habits of individuals, families, and businesses. To see how the economy is doing, they check the nation's report card, also known as the GDP, which is basically the total value of everything the country produces in a year. If the GDP is going up, things are looking good. If it's going down, well, time to tighten those seatbelts. Now, because free enterprise is a bit of a wild ride, the economy tends to go through business cycles. Sometimes it's speeding up and making everyone dizzy with excitement, and other times it's slowing down, leaving everyone wondering what just happened. To keep the roller coaster from getting too crazy, the government aims to keep three things in check: lots of jobs, steady growth, and prices that don't suddenly jump out of control. They've got a toolbox full of policies and tricks to help keep everything on track, even when the ride gets bumpy. We also depend on the government for other things. Imagine if every time you needed to use a road, you had to chip in for its construction. It would be like having to buy a ticket every time you drove somewhere. Yeah, not super practical. That's where the government swoops in like a superhero, building public goods like roads, dams, and national defense. Because let's face it, no one wants to fork over the cost of an entire highway just for their personal commute. Public goods are a bit like free samples at a store. Once they're out there, it's hard to stop people from enjoying them, even if they didn't pay. That's why it's better for the government to handle them. Otherwise, we'd all be stuck in a world where highways are just dreams and everyone's individually responsible for building their own bridges. Now let's talk about externalities, the little bonuses or headaches that come with certain goods or services. Take education. It's great for students, but it also benefits society by creating smarter folks. The government's like a friendly neighborhood watch, encouraging good stuff and trying to manage the bad stuff, like pollution from cars. But not everyone thinks the government is the best at handling these issues. Some folks prefer the market to take the lead. Lastly, the government also helps people in poverty through welfare programs. It's a bit of a mixed bag, with some critics arguing that this can make people too reliant on aid. But overall, it's about keeping things balanced in a world where not everyone has a built-in personal highway fund. Okay, it's finally time to recap. So every country is basically stuck in an ongoing game show of what should we do with our stuff. They need to figure out what to produce, how to make it, and who gets it. While some nations are all about freedom and shiny new toys, Others focus on smooth operation and growth. Enter the market. It's like a giant yard sale where buyers and sellers swap goods, driven by self-interest and competition. But wait, there's more. Government plays referee, handling public goods like roads and defense, and managing the roller coaster ride of the economy with a mix of free enterprise and regulation. In a centrally planned economy, the government is like Simon from Simon Says, making all the decisions, while in free markets, it's a wild mix of competition and consumer power. Each country blends these elements differently, from North Korea's strict control to the US's free market spirit with a dash of government oversight. And let's not forget, the government also steps in to tackle things like public goods, externalities, and poverty, because sometimes even the best free market needs a little help. There you have it, folks. That is free enterprise and other economic systems. Thanks for stopping by Nutshelled History. I need the public to get good on those like and subscribe buttons for me. What economic system would you choose if you were chief economic guru? Let us know in the comments down below. See y'all next time on Nutshelled History.